Board of Directors meeting to order. Nikki, please note the roll.
Donna, can we have you? Okay.
That's the idea of science. I do solemnly swear or affirm I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this state, and I will faithfully discharge the duties of office of the City of Coldwater Board of Public Utilities member to the best of my ability. There you go, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you.
Have a great meeting.
Is there any public comment?
Any emails?
No.
Okay.
I shouldn't see no public comment. We'll move on to the consent agenda items. First is going to be the minutes of the regular meeting Board of Directors held on April 2nd of 2025. Also the closed session of the Board of Directors held on April 2nd of 2025. The regular meeting of the Michigan South Central Power Agency Board of Commissioners held on March 6th of 2025. Also the special meeting of the Michigan South Central Power Agency Board of Commissioners held on March 21st. Included is going to be departmental reports for the Board of Public Utilities, operation reports and financial statements for March of 2025. The bills and accounts for period ending April 30th of 2025. And also the power supply cost projections. Is there any questions on those items in the consent agenda? No. Well, I need a motion to approve.
Motion. Support. There we go.
Thank you. Moving on to the regular agenda. First is going to be the water and wastewater rate adjustments. Dawn? What?
Yes, good evening. Paul, did you have anything you want to kick off with, or would you like me to just get kicked off?
Nope, just go ahead and kick right off, and then if there's any questions that we have, I'm sure we can bring them up, or we can answer them as we go.
Okay, great. I will try to just use what I see there on the screen if I can see that. If not, what I'm going to do is you don't want me to share my screen, correct?
No, we've actually got it up, and I think the new
Okay.
presentation's in there as well.
Okay, great. And if I can't read that, I'll just tell you what slide I'm on here. But I'm going to turn off my camera here so I can read that. Thank you so much. Well, good evening, you guys. I'm Dawn Lund. I'm Vice President of Utility Financial Solutions, and I really appreciate the opportunity to present to you tonight. I'm going to review the results of the water and wastewater financial projection and rate study. Our firm, Utility Financial Solutions, we're an international consulting firm, and we work with utilities across the country, Canada, Guam, and the Caribbean. We also teach for APPA. I'm a speaker for AWWA and teach the actually the Michigan AWWA section, the cost of service and financial planning for water as well in Michigan. So the services we provided for you guys were a financial projection in water, a financial projection in wastewater, and I'm going to review some proposed rate designs. I'm actually going to start off with a water financial projection, but in full transparency, this morning when I was reviewing for and getting prepared for the board meeting, I did notice we had treated the grants in this table in a manner that I wasn't super happy with. I did change that. It did not change the projection. It did not change the recommendations. It does not change the rate design. There's nothing that it changed for our recommendations or discussions tonight. But what it did change was that future cash balance. I give you a 5-year table, even though we're only discussing for 2026. I do give you a roadmap, if you will, of where I think the utility is moving into the future. And what it did affect was those future projected cash balances. So I did want to correct that for tonight's meeting. Again, it doesn't change any recommendations, any rate design. But in full transparency, I did want to mention that I did change the next 2 slides this morning. So let's talk about those briefly. This is a very highly summarized table of about 50 spreadsheets that goes behind this. And this is just rolled up. I work with this summary every single day. It's a really great tool to look at revenues, expenses, and changes and how capital might affect a rate track. But the key targets that I want to talk about today are those middle two columns, one called adjusted operating income, one called operating cash balance, and that far column debt coverage ratio. What you're looking at is a table without any rate adjustments. You'll see that at the second column, and all those are zero rate adjustments. And you can see that if we did nothing in the water utility for rate adjustments, the utility would operate at losses by 2030, and certainly our operating income deteriorates over the 5-year period. And currently, for 2026, without a rate adjustment, we would actually not be meeting our targeted operating income. Let's talk really quickly about targeted operating income. If we're fully funding that number, we're fully funding the things we should be funding in the system. We're recovering our expenses. We're recouping the infrastructure being consumed to provide service for our customers. And so it's a really important target to fund over time. In the short term, we can not fully fund that target, but we would lean on that cash balance to look at that. In the perfect world, we would fully fund that every year. But we can sometimes put in a smoothing rate track to work towards those targets. But what that leans on is a healthy cash balance, which is that operating cash balance column. You can see that currently, I want the utility to hold something above about $2.6 million. You're not quite there. And the utility deteriorates the cash balance over time. You will see a jump in 2028, but that's because we have a corresponding bond for the capital improvements in that year, in the next 2 years. Also, one thing I do want to point out is in the capital improvement column, we do have about $1 million in lead line replacements that we're anticipating a $500,000 grant to net against that. So when we look at this table, we also look at the debt coverage ratio, and you will see that debt coverage ratio jump in 2027. What's happening there is you've perfectly timed debt payoff with an anticipated bond in 2028. So that debt coverage ratio is going to swing up because debt's paid off in that year. And then when we issue new debt, of course, that debt coverage ratio will drop right in line to industry standard targets or above industry standard targets. So we're meeting our debt coverage ratio there. So when we look at this picture, what we're really trying to do is smooth out that operating income. We obviously don't want the system operating at losses or working towards losses. And our operating cash balance by 2030, we certainly don't want to have $200,000 in that fund. We want you to hold something between probably more like 2 and 3 million. And that's based on certain financial risks that I look at for each utility independently to determine what that should be. So the question becomes, what type of rate track do we need to do to keep the utility moving in the right direction for long-term financial sustainability? But before I go to that next slide, do you guys have any questions on the key targets or what we're trying to accomplish by funding these key targets?
Where do those targets come from? Are they just an internal? Is it some sort of standard?
Yep, great question. So let's go to operating income target. I'm trying to fund 2 things there. When we talk about an operating income or rate of return, it's not a rate of return like an investor-owned utility would enjoy. It's basically a break-even rate of return for a municipal. It's recovering 2 things. One is interest expense on debt, because it's below the operating income line. I want to make sure I'm funding that. And 2 is the inflationary increase on the assets we have invested in the system. And what do I mean by that? Pretend you have one asset and it's $1 million asset. When you go to replace that in the future, it's going to cost you $1.3 million or something more. And so in my example, the $300,000 is what I'm trying to recoup over time. So when we go to replace assets in the future, we have the cash to do it. That's what the operating income target is. And it's a very industry standard rate of return for you, right around 4%. Typically a municipal that can range from 4 to 6%. The operating cash column, balance column, I look at 4 risk areas to the utility. I look at operating income, and I have you reserve a 45-day working capital lag. You're paying your bills, you send out the bill to the customer pays the bill, you get the cash back. That's called a working capital lag. And it's usually about 45 days for a municipal that bills monthly. I also look at your historical investment in your system. I say, you've got millions of dollars in infrastructure sitting out there. You could have equipment failure, a main break, whatever it may be. I want you to recognize you have millions of dollars sitting out there, that if something goes wrong, you need to have the funds available to repair it. So that's another component in that minimum cash I look at for you. I also look at your debt covered, your debt payment. I always want you to reserve your debt payment so you can make your debt payment. So that's the third component. The fourth component is I look at 1/5 or 20% of your capital improvement program, less any bond issuances. And I want you to reserve the equivalent on average of 1 year of your capital improvement program. So if you tell me I'm going to spend $1 million next year, I want you to have $1 million available at the beginning of the construction season. So you can have the funds to get the capital going that you anticipate to spend. So that's how those targets are determined. Now that last column, debt coverage ratio column, in general, if you have a revenue bond, you have a bond covenants that states you have a bond ordinance, and the covenant in that ordinance is a 1.25. For financial planning purposes, I want you to target closer to a 1.45. I want you to have a buffer, if you will, in there for periods of declining sales or a wet, cold summer. Since water's revenues are very susceptible to weather changes, we want to make sure we're not just riding right at the minimum of that debt coverage ratio. So good questions. They're based on methodical analysis unique to Coldwater's water department, and you will see these same targets, a methodical analysis unique to the wastewater department. Does that help answer your question?
Yes. Thank you.
Good question. So the question becomes, how do we, turn these targets around, have them moving in the right direction without creating rate shock to our customers? And if we look at the next slide, you can see that we're proposing a 3.9% rate adjustment in each year. Right now, of course, we're looking at the 2026 year. That's what we're talking about tonight. I do like to give the board a roadmap of where we're going into the future. We've got some capital improvements anticipated in the future. You've perfectly timed debt to fall off when you would have new debt come on. That helps definitely smooth out this rate track. That's great planning. But certainly I want that. I'm trying to stabilize that operating income. I certainly don't want it to turn into a loss. I'm trying to stabilize that cash balance. If you look at this program, you're projected to have about $2.5 million at the end of 2026. I'm maintaining that by the end of 2030 to about 2.8 million. I'm just trying to stabilize that cash so we're not having that decline. And of course, your debt coverage ratio in that far column is about where we would be, even though we're issuing new debt. You've got debt that drops off in 2027-ish. And that's just perfectly timed for that new possible debt to come on there. So when we look at this, if we want to look at the next slide, we can look at the average ratepayer, what the rate design looks like at a 3.9%. And then we'll also look at how that affects the average ratepayer. So if Your current rates, you're charging, this is a 5/8" meter or a regular residential customer. You're currently charging $18.50. I'm moving that fixed charge, proposing to move that fixed charge to $19.50.
Hold on.
You
Yep,
if we want to go back to that other slide, that'd be great.
hold on.
Perfect. We can look at this slide or the next one, either one, but so you can see in this slide, we're going from 18, and you can see in this slide as well, that top line there, it says customer charge, current rates. We're moving from $18.50 to proposed $19.50. You also have tiers. For the first tier, I'm proposing moving from $2.60 to $2.68. The second tier, $2.28 to $2.35. Your average residential customer uses about 5,000 gallons. Their bill would, on average, go from about $31.50 to $32.90, or a $1.40 rate increase for the 3.9% rate adjustment. So that covers summary and water. Do you guys have any questions on that?
I don't think so.
Okay, we're going to look at the exact same tables, the exact same targets for wastewater. Now, wastewater, I want to give you a little bit of background. You guys have done an excellent job of preparing for what you possibly have coming in 2027. You've prepared for this for years. We've worked on your studies for a while. I've always heard, okay, we're going to have to do something. Exactly when we have to do a big project in wastewater, we don't really know. Exactly how much it's going to cost, we don't really know. But we know it's kind of out in this area, which was between 2025 and 2030. We knew something was coming. So the reason I bring that up is you will see that the wastewater department's a little bit more robust in cash balance than the water department. That was planned. And what this table is showing you is the same three targets, the middle column, adjusted operating income. My operating cash balance is currently 8 million. My debt coverage ratio is currently healthy. You can see that over time, your adjusted operating income declines, not to losses, but it declines something under than the optimal operating income, meaning I'm not fully funding the system. You will see the cash balance remains pretty healthy, but also I want you to pay attention to the debt issuance column and the capital improvement column. You can see that I've issued the whole amount of debt, the almost $30 million project. I'm trying to be very conservative and show you, quote unquote, the worst case scenario on borrowing, meaning at the time that you would go to borrow for this and really complete this project, you could decide how much you really need to borrow. You might not need to borrow the whole 30 million. You've done a good job planning for that, to have the cash balance healthy enough to help make those decisions, and to have that cash balance healthy enough to have a more favorable bond rating, hopefully, as you do consider to go issue debt. Another thing to know for background is you did the same exact thing in wastewater. Your debt timing was very well done. You have about $550,000 in debt that will drop off right around the time this new bond would be issued. So it's a much more smoothing effect to your ratepayer on how it will impact the ratepayer to borrow this type of money. And so in the perfect world, if you just looked at these targets, you may say, well, we might not need a rate adjustment. But one thing that's driving this is I'm trying to smooth out the rate track, okay? And we have to be very careful of that debt coverage ratio in that last column. You can see that after we issue that debt coverage ratio drops to a 1.12. I want you to be closer to something more like a 1.5, a 1.45 for a revenue bond. So the idea here is is to put in a smooth rate track for your customers, something pretty close to inflationary type rate track. And when the time comes that you do complete that project, you can decide, do I want to borrow the full amount? And or maybe by the time you complete that project, of course, we're seeing capital expenditures actually come in much greater when they're officially quoted than what was anticipated. So before I move on, do you guys have any questions on the history of that? Because I am proposing a small rate adjustment in wastewater. Again, the idea is to stabilize that operating income. And more importantly, though, that debt coverage ratio. We have to have a healthy debt coverage ratio when we're issuing that type of debt. The cash balance column for today, what you can consider is that is robust. The next slide, I'm going to show you the cash balance is robust, but at the time of debt issuance, you can decide if you want to borrow that full $30 million. So when we go to this slide, you can see I'm proposing a 3.5% rate adjustment. I'm stabilizing my operating income. I'm making sure I'm fully funding the system like I should be. My cash balance looks very healthy. I can decide to spend down some of my cash balance and not borrow the full 30 million. And you can see that this rate track at a minimum gets my debt coverage ratio where I want it to be. And that's just at a minimum. So I'm comfortable front loading, if you will, the rate adjustment in this year, the year before you issue debt. I think it gives, when you go out to issue this debt, I think it will make the utility look more favorably, that somebody's, watching the statistics and watching the numbers, and that you're going to meet your debt coverage ratio after you issue that debt. So do you guys have any questions on this? I'm going to tell you exactly, with the rate design that we're proposing and how that would affect your average 5/8 inch customer as well.
No, keep on going.
Okay, so this, on this, I approached the rate design a little bit differently here. I wanted to be sensitive to the customer charge. You're currently charging $29.90. I maintained that, and I put the cost recovery more on the commodity rate, moving it from $3.52 to $3.75. You will see that it affects your average customer on the next slide. It affects the average customer by about $1.15 at 5,000 gallons. It's actually affecting the customer a little bit less than water. And that's because I'm hitting the variable component a little bit more than the fixed component. Now, when the debt is actually issued and the project is actually completed, and you complete a cost of service study and those costs are allocated in future studies, we might revisit that customer charge. I'm just right now trying to visually keep it on under $30, to be honest, and be sensitive to that fixed component of your rate. But certainly we may need to look at that in the future. So with that, in summary, we're proposing a rate adjustment in water, which would affect the average 5/8 inch ratepayer using 5,000 gallons about $1.40. In wastewater, we're recommending a 3.5% rate adjustment, which would affect your ratepayer about $1.15. Do you guys have any questions on anything I covered tonight?
So just to add to what Don did, and thank you very much, John. This is a great report, and I think it goes over and explains everything. As years passed, this will go into effect July 1st. And the electric, if approved in future months, will go into effect September 1st. So that we can avoid the summer peaks on the electric and do it as almost like an off-season startup on that one. So this would be moving forward to the council with your approval to go into effect July 1st. But any questions that you have on the report or any other questions that you have for Don? One of the reasons we went through and did all this is as we get ready to do our bond issuances, it's a requirement of bond issuances to make sure we have a cost of service done on the wastewater side, but we went ahead and did it on the water side as well too, just to make sure that we're consistent with everything.
Do we have plans to reach out to the community somehow and not just say, okay, here's the change in cost, but some of the reasons why, to give them understanding why these things are necessary?
Yes, yeah, we'll definitely make sure that we do a PR blitz on what's happening after city council approval. We'll make sure that they're aware of it and moving forward. If there's any questions and stuff as well, maybe if we put together FAQs like we've done in the past that some customers may ask. So if you have any being customers yourself that you can think of that you would have, please let me know or let Stephanie know or Nikki know, and we can get them put together for a one pager out to the public. And this is also something that was brought up last time during the budget proposal as well too. You can see where we fall within water, wastewater rates as well. And we're on the lower end for all the surrounding communities around us.
Which is great, but sometimes people don't really.
Understand. Perfect. And that's where we educate.
Yep.
There's no other questions. We need a motion to decide what we want to do.
I'll move to accept the rate changes and send to city council.
Thank you.
And that's resolution 25-48.
Second.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion's passed. And we can't need you on that one this time. Sorry.
Thank you, Don.
Thanks, Don.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You guys have a great evening.
Next on the agenda is gonna be the 25-26 fiscal year budget. Carmen, you are up.
Good evening, President Stevens and members of the board. My name is Carmen Cardenas. I am the Assistant Director of Finance for the City of Coldwater and BPU. And I basically just want to refresh what was already presented in April. So in April, you guys were presented the budget summary for BPU. And at that point, it included the water and wastewater increases based on the proposed studies. Based on the proposal that Dawn just went over, we fine-tuned revenue and included March financials to present a final draft. We also adjusted depreciation based on a final review of the current and future work in progress. Overall, there were no material changes that impact cash flow. So the summary that you see, there are no cash impacts that were made. We just fine-tuned and did a final review of depreciation. Overall, there's an estimated $3.8 million that will be invested back into system equity, and this is for all BPU services.
Any questions for Carmen or the rest of the finance team? If there's anything, as Carmen mentioned, this is just an update of last month's budget that was presented. There's no other great material findings, any changes that we put in. There's also a copy of what's proposed for the capital budgeting as well. And if there is no comments or questions, we will request approval to move this forward to city council.
Motion to approve.
Thank you.
Support.
You got a motion support? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Motion's passed. Thank you, Carmen. Next on the agenda is a drinking water state revolving fund. Brian?
Good afternoon, everyone. Attached to, you'll see the draft for the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund Project plan that was prepared by Fishbeck. The purpose of this document is to present a plan improvements to the city of Coldwater's drinking water system with requirements met by the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality and Energy. The plan focuses on replacing aging infrastructure, lead service lines within the city's distribution system. The project proposed, the system is going to focus on Ward 4. The impacts of the proposed project include compliance with the Safe Drinking Water Act, improvements to safety, reliability, water quality. This fund is that the CBPU is requesting a loan through the Department of Treasury. The projected design construction cost will estimate about 3 million. Kind of mirrors the one that we're working under now. The previous lead service line replacements were reimbursed at 100% of wages, materials, and equipment hours used. The reimbursement rate for this loan has not been determined yet. When we started the lead service line replacements, we had just over 1,200 services. We're down to, we've done 400, roughly 400. We've got just over 800 left to replace. The services in Ward 1 have all been replaced with the exception of the block between Elm and Sprague Streets. There's a 4-inch water main in there that we'd like to replace that 4-inch water main and change those services at that time in the next few years. The estimated cost to finish the entire project, we're estimating range between 7 and 10 million, with some of the more costlier areas coming up with Marshall Street, Chicago Street. Those will be in the next couple of years. Therefore, we request the board approval to apply for the 3 million state revolving funds through the Michigan Department of Treasury for the next phase of the lead line replacement. And for the presentation of the project plan, we have Deanne Polakowski from Fishbeck to go over that plan.
Hi, I'm Deanne Folkowski. I'm a vice president and senior engineer at Fishbeck. The project plan that Brian was discussing is prepared. A draft is up on the city website for all to review and receive comment before the city council meeting. So if you could change the page, thank you. The Drinking Water State Revolving Fund Program is designed to assist water suppliers like yourselves to meet all the requirements of the Safe Drinking Water Act by offering low interest loans. We're applying, like Brian said, for $3 million with the remaining bipartisan infrastructure law dollars through Eagle. The project plan will be submitted at the end of May. It's due by June 1st. They release their draft funding plan in August with final plan submittal in September or October. So if we receive the funding, we would anticipate construction next spring, summer. Let's see. So we had to, evaluate needs, through the community, alternatives that would have been looked at, mitigation of direct and indirect environmental impacts and whatnot, as part of the project plan, just all requirements of the state. So the need for the plan obviously is to replace the lead and galvanized services throughout the community. Obviously, no action is not alternative. Net lead is no longer an acceptable material for service lines. So, we just said flat out to Eagle, obviously we'd be replacing the lines. Like Brian said, we're going to focus on Ward 4 where there's approximately 456 services remaining. I know the total amount that's in my slide on the next page it's been reduced since they've been, working on replacement continuously. So we are requesting the 3 million. We are unsure at this time whether it will be a full loan, or a partial grant. So user costs right now, we would be anticipating approximately $2.20. It would decrease, if we receive principal forgiveness or 100% grant. So we're hopeful we'll receive something, but we're unsure at this time. Environmental impacts throughout the project are pretty minimal. There's no threat to endangered species, all things we're required to look at as part of the Eagle. Obviously construction will be limited to regular working hours. And it'd be most likely one of the contractors that has been working in the past or another local contractor that would get the work. We're anticipating bidding this out. So it would most likely be an area, as Brian said, like even Marshall or US 12 Chicago, where it's just more difficult for them to do the replacements, additional traffic control. It'd be faster for a contractor to do that type of work. So we'd probably focus on the more problem areas within the Ward 4. So we're not anticipating any other issues. And like I said, it's up on the website for anyone within the community to review. Any public comments, we have until the end of the month. I will actually be presenting at the May 27th meeting. We were unable to get it in the newspaper quick enough, so that's the small change. So I'll be presenting at the May 27th city council meeting. So any comments on the project plan would be directed to myself. So that we have to include any public comment or participation at the city council meeting within the report, just so that Eagle gets that feedback. So, thank you. If anyone has any additional
I don't know if
questions.
it's more for Paul or not, but we have the current $3 million grant.
Mhm.
Is that gonna carry us through the next year? We still have those funds available? This won't kick off till,
I will let
next year?
Brian explain that, but I believe that we have to use up that money here shortly.
okay.
But in the way that our budget is set up, if we do not get this grant, we still are putting in about $500 million or $500,000 to get it done prior to, or to continue working towards it. It's just gonna be a longer extended period of time that we'd be doing. And I'm sure Brian would love to have $500 million to redo the water system. But I'm not sure that's gonna
We're
go
doing the whole
well.
city, right?
Yeah, we run out of funds September of this year
Okay.
is when we have to be completed with that 3 million. What we don't use gets sent back, so we're trying to use it all up. So we'll have a
Plan on
gap.
using it all?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, that's our goal.
Yep.
If he does a good job, it will happen. So then probably June of 26. Depends, the last time they kicked us to September. So, but we will continue to replace during that time. We just won't get any reimbursement for that we do.
Just use that out of the operating budget?
Yes.
Correct.
So are we gonna adjust that $3 million budget that we're gonna put towards this based on grants? If we get grants or don't get grants, or?
So the way that Dawn put the rate proposal together, the way she had it, and the reason that it had to change is she originally thought that the 3 million was gonna be paid back on 100%, but it's only gonna be paid back at what we anticipate is 50%. So that's why she had to adjust some of her numbers. The $6.5 million that you saw in Dawn's projections are for, we know that we're gonna have to invest in the system. We just don't know when or how much. It could be a water tower, it could be a new pump station, it could be if we get additional growth. We're not 100% sure, but it's similar to what we've done in the past for the wastewater plant. We knew that we were gonna have to do stuff at the wastewater plant, so we continue to put that as a placeholder for that. That's what that $6.5 million is on the water side. So we could do it in 27 if a project presents itself or the system requires it, or we can continue to push that out if we don't see the need to go out for bonding on that.
Thank you.
Any additional questions for anybody? No?
All right, thanks.
Thank you. What is the desire of the board?
Yeah, motion to approve.
Support.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 I thought you were gonna say.
A little delayed.
I say it wrong. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passed. Next is gonna be the OJT presentations. Grace, Elizabeth, and Tony.
We'll do Grace first, yeah.
There we go.
Okay.
All right, this is my presentation on my OJT experience. So my name is Grace Huff. I work in the Community Engagement Department. My manager is Stephanie Burdick, and I started my OJT placement on August 12th, 1 week before my school started. So I am 18 years old. I'm graduating from Coldwater High School. My last day is May 30th for OJT, and my last day of school was today. I work 3 hours a week, 4 days a week, but on Wednesdays, I go to BACC for Mr. Sebeski's class, and I participate in the Coldwater equestrian team and the varsity track team. So this is a wonderful start for me. It really helps me understand how a job works, how to be a good employee, and what my responsibilities would be for work. The skills that I have learned from this placement was photography, specifically manual settings, Photoshop, where I learned how to clone things, cover things up, even how to blend two pictures into one, and how to light and darken raw photos. Graphic design is another big one. I learned what colors look good with what shapes look good with different textures, and how to just put them all into one component to make it appealing to the eye. Before I learned manual settings, I really just relied on the camera to do all the work for me, which led me to dark photos or too light photos, or my photos just being blurry or having a weird texture. And you also really need to pay attention if your settings get bumped, because they will end up like your middle picture there. After I learned manual settings, my pictures started to become more clear, more colorful, and I was able to adjust my settings whenever I needed to. If I moved to a different spot, if I moved to inside, outside, I was able to do that. I also learned what leading lines were and what rules of thirds to make it more visual to the eye and my pictures more appealing. When I started doing designs, I could see what I wanted to do, but I couldn't really get it onto the computer like I wanted it to. And I just didn't have that skill yet. I also didn't know how to take that extra step. I wasn't feeling very comfortable with pictures or realistic things, so I really stuck to the more cartoony feel because that's what I was comfortable with. So I let my old designs sit for a few months while I gained my strength in Canva. Coming back, I totally ditched my hydrant flushing social media and totally revamped it to what you can see on your screen now. Has a more realistic feel to it. It flows better, the colors blend together. I totally ditched my brush pickup and went to real pictures of our guys working, because that's what people want to see. They want to see our people working and really making the community better. And for the entertainment under the stars, I didn't ditch it. I just added a whole lot of stuff, making it a lot more appealing to the eye. A few campaigns I have helped with are the Winterfest, Strawberry Fest, and Mother and Son Night. For Winterfest, I had to do a lot of research, Facebook research, just online, looking for what food vendors were coming, what entertainment was coming. It took me a few days to do this, and I found pictures and was able to put them in social medias. For Strawberry Fest, this was a campaign that I did by myself. It was the first one that I did, and I learned how to make flyers, posters, Facebook covers, social medias, all cohesive with each other. So they all looked the same, but they all had different information. For the Mother and Son Night, this was a campaign that I started experimenting with different colors, different transparencies, different backgrounds, different textures. As you can see, the Mother and Son Night, the background to that is a turf texture, and the two different social medias have two different backgrounds, but they're both soccer themed, so they went together. So my life after high school, I've decided to work on my dad's family farm this summer, while also thinking about taking KCC classes to better my education if I were to go into the workforce, just so that I can get a little extra to move into a job that I would like. In conclusion, I have learned how to communicate better with people, how my mood affects other people at the office, how just even if I'm happy can make somebody else's day happy because they get to work with somebody that is enjoyable to be around. And I didn't realize how many people went into running an amazing community like this and would have the opportunity to work here again would be amazing. My opportunity has also helped me get out of my shell more. I'm a very social person. I love to talk. And I have improved my photography skills, my design skills, my Photoshop tremendously. And these are the photos of the amazing people and the amazing experiences I had at CBPU and the city. And thank you so much for watching and this wonderful opportunity that I can't even imagine that I got. So thank you so much.
Is there any questions for Grace?
I have one. Does Stephanie like collages?
I made that.
Thank you, Grace. Appreciate all your work. Elizabeth?
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Lahr, and I did OJT at the wastewater plant. And I also did I did a week at the water plant too. So some things about me is I go to Coldwater High School and I'm attending the Branch Area Career Center in the ag program. I'm also a part of the FFA and I have the state degree through FFA. So some things I did during this job was I went around collecting drinking water samples. I would test the samples. I would also collect the wastewater samples around the plant and I would test those too. I also worked as the operator and go around to make sure some equipments are in check, or I would even help like switch some pumps around. I also helped with some programs and a lot of paperwork. And I did like some site inspections. I went to Clemens once to make sure, get a sample from there. I also went to Asama and got some samples there. This is the picture of the lab, and I mostly worked in the lab a lot. This is an industry that we went to. This is the rendering plant. Some projects I went to is I would build state regulatory reports. I also did monthly reports, biosolid annual reports, SOPs, which that took a while. I would design layout of processes. I tagged a lot of valves. And I did stormwater pollution prevention. So we went around in the river and looked at the stormwater draining spots and made sure they were clear, and also got samples from them to make sure the water coming into the river was safe. This is one of the monthly reports we were working on. This is a annual biosolid report. This is some of the SOPs we worked on. We had to build like on the computer all of these, so showing which valve should be open for where you want it to go to and all the pumps that were in the area. And then this is explaining how to do all of that. This is the stormwater drains that we would collect samples out of and make sure we're clear. Skills I have acquired is communications over the phone, email, and in person. Also time management. If work needs to get done, I learned to get it done in a timely manner and complete the task in order of importance. And documenting, that was a big thing that I learned how to do, which is filling out all the paperwork, and it's not easy as you think it is. And entering the lab results, which also takes a little bit. And thank you.
Any questions for her?
I just
Thank you
wanted
very
to
much.
say I'm very thankful for this opportunity and I really enjoyed it. It's helped a lot.
Thank you for your hard work.
Thank you.
Tony?
I am Tony Martinez. I was doing OJT here as in the IT department with my boss, Pat Poole. And just reach this. Nikki, can you full screen it? If you just put your,
I didn't have to do anything to yours.
maybe not then. All right, it does work. So about me, I am a senior at Bronson Junior Senior High School. My last day is May 14th. Last year, I attended the Branch Area Career Center and I was able to get my A+ certification, which is an industry standard certification. And getting that allowed me to qualify for OJT. And I was also a part of Business Professionals of America, which is a little, which you can go into for competitions and various things like that. And I was also a part of Youth in Government. I was in the National Issues Forum, debating topics about national issues and creating proposals. So when I first expected here, I expected to mainly do a lot of hardware work, physical computers, just standard routine tickets or low level uncomplicated work. And because of that, I thought it would be sort of easy to work here. Simple textbook issues, and I was wrong. Some of the projects and tasks I ended up working on here was making a script to automatically grab a key to decrypt the drive if I needed to. That way we didn't have to constantly manually save it onto a text file and then keep it within somewhere in our database. So I made it a lot easier to just plug it in, have it grab it automatically. Super simple, super easy. I also assisted Chase with the discovery of seeing where Case stores its garbage information, because a lot of times, even looking online, we couldn't really find any information on where it stored that. And currently I'm working to recreate one of our reports through a software called Bell Manage, because I think the price increased and we didn't see it as worth it to just keep paying for the service that we only use for one simple thing. As for what I've learned during my OGT experience, I've learned a lot of just general customer service skills, prioritization, teamwork, and communication. When it comes to technology, I've learned more about computer softwares, nice tricks and tips on fixing things or implementing things, and also just scripting and coding. And personally, it's helped me find my passion for coding and software development. It's helped me improve my people skills a bit. I'm still a bit awkward and nervous. And I do feel a bit more outgoing. It allowed me to do other things throughout my senior year. As for feedback, I'm grateful for the feedback given from the IT department, whether it was positive affirmations that I was doing a good job or negative feedback. And I don't mean like bad feedback. I mean like, oh, maybe you could have done this, started off here, things to help me improve in my work. And general nice feedback from everyone, whether it be, smiley people like Stephanie or Aaron, always greeting me with a warm smile, or getting picked on in a joking way from the IT department and sometimes the police officers too. As for my conclusion, I'm very grateful to have had this opportunity to work here throughout the year, and it's been a very positive experience on me personally, and also when it comes to my professional career and my future. And I will work towards a computer science degree with a focus of computer programming at Baker Online. So I'll still be in the area. Maybe you'll see me around at my family business or something. And my goal so far is to become a software developer or programmer. I'm not too sure where or what I want to work on, but I'll figure that out when I get there. Any questions from the board?
Nope.
Great job.
We appreciate your hard work, Bill, and good luck in the future.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Now, before we move on, I'd just like to, thank the entire staff that takes care of the OJT students. And if you see them when they first come in, they barely look you in the eye. They barely will say hello to you. It's sometimes like pulling teeth to find out who they are. But by the end, they're all outgoing. They're well versed. They're well taken care of. And I do believe that the BPU and its staff are doing our future a really great service by training them on how to act in a professional environment, as well as how to get things done and what's expected. As we all know, we've all been through high school at some point in our life. We know what they teach you, and this is a true life situation. So congratulations and thank you to all of our staff that has taken the time out of their days to get all this done with our OJT students.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's, we've got some, I got an R&D intern started this week, and it's the same way. And I think it's a great opportunity for them to grow. And I hope we definitely,
Yeah, our interns start on Monday, so.
you have some summer interns
Yes, we
starting
do.
too?
We do.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, you would think that they grow out of that high school portion, and then when they get into college, and they kind of revert back a little bit. So that's the same thing with the interns.
Well,
as
Chase
too.
liked us so much, he's returning, so, right, Chase?
Yep. All right. And just a reminder, Chase, you do got to give her a presentation at the end with your internship over the summer.
Next on the agenda is going to be the Branch County Economic Growth Alliance annual report presentation. Audrey?
Yes, will this be more impressive if I claim that I'm also an OJT student? Right. Thank you. This is my first time presenting this type of report to this board, but I think this is my third or fourth time giving this presentation in general. So I thank you for closing out my big annual report season. This report kind of serves two functions. It's part an update on economic conditions and projects at a county level, and it's also a report on staff activities relative to the Growth Alliance and the scope of work that we have that is specific to this. Now, this is not the full scope of my job. Obviously, the Main Street Impact Report and a lot of the downtown revitalization work is an entirely separate packet of information and things to share. So this does cover a portion, but not all. And this reflects for a majority of the year, really one staff person, and we did add a second staff person in the second half of the year. But given that this is an annual report, we'll only get to reflect a little bit of that work and that value, and we'll have, much more exciting things to report a year from now. So I always start with the scope of work of what staff do and what we try to keep track of. All of these activities relate to kind of the three things of we want to support businesses, and businesses need people to work at them, and we want a great place where people want to live. And that's kind of like a three-part cycle, right? Talent wants place, place needs business, and business needs talent. So in that thread, these are the kinds of activities that we track and report on. So this could be identifying and applying for incentives, helping businesses with talent attraction and upskilling, doing program outreach, whether it's for our own program or on behalf of our partners. We respond to requests for proposals that come in when industrial projects in particular are trying to narrow their site selection efforts. It also means we maintain and update the site listings that we have throughout the county. More recently, we've started to host educational forums for local employers. We conduct site visits and tours fairly routinely. When possible, sometimes those include participation from regional partners or from state legislators when we can get them in our district. Grant writing is a key component of the work. We also locate and provide regional data. Sometimes that is a project-specific request or for other staff members who are working on grant applications, kind of being a wealth of knowledge, being able to track that down for whatever purpose is at hand. We do special projects, and staff also serve as the board liaison to both the Downtown Development Authority / Main Street Board and the Growth Alliance itself. So just a couple of examples here when we talk about incentives. That could be tax abatements, new applications, figuring out when new incentives are made available by the state of Michigan, like the new uses of brownfield TIF, workforce funding that really runs the gamut dependent on need. Questions about types of things that we do? No, great. This is more of an update slide looking at our growth as a community. I think last year estimated around a 4% population estimate growth based on the number of housing units that were already in the works and have since either been completed or are near completion. We are the only rural county in our 8-county region that is experiencing an increase in population. And I think we're one of only 2 counties in that 8-county region, just in general, rural or otherwise, that is increasing. Our unemployment rate is very cyclical, routine, and within the normal range. I think last year we were around 4.4% lower, but I give you kind of a 3 to 5 year look at that to show that wherever we are is pretty standard. And this, I believe, is pulled in February. And low relative to the state overall and our surrounding areas. Largest employers, this is always reported by just number of employees from a big picture scale. This list has not moved around too terribly much in previous years. The numbers of employees might shift a little bit. Obviously, Clemens has experienced the most dramatic change in terms of their workforce. I do think by this time next year, there might be a little bit of shift in this list. I believe Asama has hired all of the employees tied to their current expansion project, and that might cause for some rearrangement. We update this, one, for our own purposes, but two, I always give this as a report to our finance department staff who include this as part of the annual audit. The health of the local economy, our employers, and the risk of our tax revenue, essentially, that any one employer could be responsible for is a part of that audit and our risk assessment. So it's good that we are pretty diverse, just in terms of type of industry and size of employers. So I showed you the kinds of activities that we do, and this is the slide where I try to quantify that to the best of our ability. It is tedious to track, but we do our best. Last year, we did site visits to Asama, Madsen Steel, and Schmitz Foam, where Representative Wahlberg was able to join us on 2 of those. Site visits are something we schedule when we have time. I would like that number to increase in future years. Site visits are an opportunity to kind of get a gauge of what companies are up to, what their challenges are, and kind of address topics proactively when they might not necessarily think to ask for assistance. That's one way where we can troubleshoot and get information to them ahead of time wherever possible. We had 7 RFPs that we actually submitted last year. That means we might have gotten a lot more requests for proposals from our region and from the state, but there were only 7 opportunities where we had a site that met the appropriate metrics to submit. This is less than average, not just for us, but statewide. Typically in an election year, the number of projects in that pipeline is a little bit smaller. Even though we're past the election, I think that trend, now that we're 4 months wholly into the first year, is continued. It is slower than normal. And I know there's certainly lots of uncertainty baked into the current policy climate that is, I'm sure, partially responsible for that. We issued 8 press releases. We did host 4 informational forums, and I'll cover that again in a later slide. Roughly 37 to 40 partner meetings. That could be an example of our regional partner meetings. That could be meeting with the chamber or Michigan Works, or a number of the partners that we have that I cover on another slide, making sure that we're up to speed on their projects, their opportunities, and relaying that information to relevant projects and employers. We also did a number of letters of support. Sometimes this is for our own local projects that are applying for incentives. Other times this can be providing a letter of support when a partner agency is experiencing, asking the legislature to renew their contracts and kind of demonstrating the value of that partner to us locally. Lots of presentations like this are given over the course of the year. We did have 2 higher profile ones last year. We were invited to the Small Town and Rural Development Conference, where I spoke on a panel based on our participation in 3 key programs that the state of Michigan offers, being Michigan Main Street, Redevelopment Ready Communities, and CLG, Certified Local Government, which relates to historic preservation. We also presented to the Michigan Downtown Association. At the end of the previous year, we were awarded a Best Public-Private Partnership Award for the Children's Museum project. And as a result of that, we got to present at their spring conference about that project, which is always fun to talk about. Forums. So in 2023, a group of local partners, we conducted a workforce talent needs survey specific to Branch County. And we use that as a basis to start hosting these informational forums or meetings or lunch and learns, lots of things that you can refer to these as, that responded to the survey findings. So from a base standpoint, the first year we really focused on putting employers in contact with existing programs and services, because we found that there was a lack of awareness about some things that were already available. So before we look at developing new programs to fill the gap, we wanted them to know and be familiar with some of those providers and everything that they offer, so they're more comfortable reaching out directly. This included hosting forums with the Career Center to talk about the ways that employers can be involved in developing their program or participating in those boards. Another session with the Career Center to talk specifically about OJT and work experience and how to be involved in hosting students. We brought Michigan Works Southwest in to discuss a very wide and long list of what they offer. And then we also covered the Employer Resource Network. That's something we don't currently have in Branch County, but that is something that is a supplement to traditional HR functions, where you can have a confidential staff person on site for a given number of hours per week to tackle things that affect employee retention and attendance that kind of fall outside of traditional HR. So I think we're hopeful that we could get something off the ground in the next year or 2 in there, but we don't quite have a quorum of participating employers yet. I am clicking, just so, thank you. Thank you for the assist, Nikki. I mentioned partners, what do those look like? This is, I'm sure not an all-encompassing list, but this is our frequent flyers. They do all kinds of things with us and for us. They could, if we're thinking about Southwest Michigan First, who just held a planning session locally, they provide training to our elected officials. They can assist with business development workshops. They can also be another source of data and analysis, or they can really fill the gap in a way that local staff just don't have the capacity to. In a similar way as staff for the Growth Alliance, I might help out Bronson or Quincy with a project that they don't have capacity to take on locally. Some of our partners also fill that gap for us, or they have a specialty that is valuable that we might connect businesses to or to host workshops on. They also advocate at a state and national level for policy-related topics, and some of them will do projects specific to our region. And I've got a couple of those listed here. If we focus on, well, these are just the strategic projects in general that staff were involved in last year. One is the child care implementation team. The Branch County Community Foundation is leading the charge on how to reduce barriers and make it more attractive and incentivized to develop child care facilities or opportunities in Branch County, since I think there are around 3.2 kids who need a seat for every one child 3.2 kids who need a child care placement for every one that's available. And that, of course, affects workforce participation and a whole other range of things. So they are working and we are working on through that team. How can we reduce barriers from that standpoint? And then what can kind of respective stakeholders do to help support that? So we have done zoning code audits for each community to say where their local zoning might be more or less stringent than state standards, as an example, among a very large list of other items. If you want to learn more about that, I'm sure the Community Foundation would love to pick your brain about it in greater detail. Thrive Southwest Michigan is a talent attraction campaign specific to Southwest Michigan. This is where our regional partner, Southwest Michigan First, can come in and coordinate a website that kind of builds off of the UCAN and Michigan statewide campaign by partnering with people like myself in each county to get updated information that's specific to Branch County and each community that is made available on that talent attraction campaign website. We also administered a USDA Housing Preservation Grant program last year. This is something that our CEDM fellow we worked with to apply for and be awarded when she was here. And then we had 2 years to implement. We were only able to implement around 31,000 of an award that was over 100. When you have staff turnover for a community of our size, that can really affect your ability to provide the wraparound support and awareness that's needed to fully take advantage of those types of programs. And hopefully in the future, we can reapply and see a greater benefit. Even though this is very positive, just to be able to have had 6 projects that were successful. And lastly, site readiness dashboard. This is more of an internal planning tool, but this is again something our regional partner had taken on by assisting us in strategically scoring and mapping out the path to making some of our priority sites better achieve site readiness standards as those standards are laid out by the state of Michigan and with national site selectors. So there is a little bit of funding tied to that effort for us to be able to bring particularly our Newton Road site a little bit closer to site ready. But this will also allow us to apply for grant funding at the state level for bigger tasks. For example, we don't quite have utilities to that site perimeter and a number of other things done, but that's now that we've got that dashboard and the really detailed scoring, we might be in a position to track down some assistance in anticipation of a future project. Questions here? No, I know you've listened to a lot of people talk tonight. I appreciate your patience. This should say project announcements. This is what is new of the previous calendar year. We have a project downtown that actually should be breaking ground soon at 22 West Pearl Street for a holistic redevelopment tied to some funding from the state of Michigan, and of course, a local tax abatement and some other items. A couple solar projects. We've obviously had more projects break ground since these, but given again that this is a 2024 reporting period, we had 2 projects of a similar size, around 150 megawatts, 900 acres in the county. For context, the Sauk solar project in particular is 3 times larger than its next largest project, which was located in Lapeer. These affect, obviously, the land that's available for other types of development. I guess that's the end of that sentence. This does affect land that's available for other types of development in that partially is responsible for why we have smaller sites currently. We no longer advertise a mega site, as the state would call it, as we had previously. I would like to provide you with a map next year that kind of shows the land designated to this use and to other uses, so we kind of have a visual appreciation for what that looks like. Tibbetts battery storage, not a big land user, but a big power project that's technically taking place in the township. And then, of course, last year, Clemens announced their expansion that's tied to a 30% increase in processing, I think around 20% new jobs tied to that special use or variance request that was approved, and some of the new technology that they're implementing to be able to direct ship more. And this is I'll just pause here for a moment to say, we reported on these projects last year. They are making good progress. I know Schmitz Foam plans to do a ribbon cutting in the September timeframe. I mentioned previously that Asama has already hired all of the new jobs that were tied to this expansion over the winter. And the others continue to make good progress and are on track, including Matson Steel and Bronson, which I believe has until next year to meet their hiring requirements to realize the full value of that business development award from the state of Michigan. Sometimes I report on grants that businesses receive. This happens to be a year where all the grants were applied for and awarded based on staff efforts. So this is a list here of around $163,000 between myself and then Erin, for the short period of time that she was with us, did a great job of getting grant funding towards the city of Coldwater's master plan update that's coming up, and funding for a number of other downtown specific projects. Budget. Just a note on budget for the Growth Alliance. I know I prefaced earlier, small number of staff, small budget, but we try to get a lot done. Most of the BCEGA budget does come from this board and from the city of Coldwater, with some additional participation from the county and Bronson and Quincy. A majority of that funding is billed back to the city, who provides staffing to the organization and is able to provide benefits and all those kinds of things that make us able to attract and retain talent, myself included. It's also used for some conference travel. We've been using it for meals for those who have attended the forums recently, and a handful of special projects, which we really have not done as much of since 2020, when we were doing rebates for businesses' adaptations to COVID-19 health and safety requirements. I don't go into the full downtown, but I do give you the high levels of private and public investment. This varies wildly year to year, depending on whether we have a robust redevelopment project. Last year, we didn't have one that took place or finished within that calendar year. So private investment in the downtown was around $500,000. Public investment was around 120. 5 new businesses did open between Shawarma Station, Carpe Diem Skin Spa, Tig's Canteen, Jim's Place, and City Barber Shop. And a number of those facade projects were also tied to some of those business openings, as well as longer time tenants, such as the Executive Suites building, making improvements into their facades. That could be top to bottom rehabs, it could be signage. There are lots of things that fall into that facade project category. And we hit a milestone of, I know that's under reports, we're getting better at tracking, but 1,000 volunteer hours at the end of 2024 for the Main Street program, since we started tracking it about 3 years ago. And of course, a note on the Children's Museum, since we've done that relocation and expansion project, which I know this board also contributed to, the museum has increased their visitors by 130%. So that's 2.3x what they were doing in the previous location. And I believe that 14,000 figure is low and will be it'll be higher this year. They had a similar increase in their revenue, not just from people attending the museum, but they've also added a pretty significant retail area to their operation to diversify their income and to provide another retail location in the downtown. So we're in good shape there. I'm sure you've been in to see it, but if you haven't, let me know and I'll give you the whole tour, top and bottom, upstairs too. Oh, and that is I don't want to say that's all I prepared for you, but that is all I prepared for you. If you have questions, I'm happy to take them. If you have thoughts on any other content you'd like to see in the future, please let me know.
Any questions for Audrey? No? Thank you, Audrey. Great
Thanks.
presentation. Next on the agenda, Brian, could be talking about truck number 224 replacement.
Back. Truck 224 is a 2011 with 136,000 miles on it. It was scheduled for replacement and included in the capital budget for fiscal year 2024, 2025. The specification for this truck we quoted through Cold Ford. The budget amount was 50,000. The total cost has been quoted at 52,384. And unless there's another need for truck 224 in another department, it'll be sold. Therefore, we ask for board approval for the purchase of this new pickup.
Any questions on the truck?
Just getting to the end of its useful life.
Yep, it's 136,000 miles and it's getting there.
Ran out of duct tape.
What department is this for?
For water.
Water department.
Oh, I don't know. It was wastewater.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Motion a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion's passed. Thanks, Brian. Next on the agenda is the construction-related services agreement. John, you're up.
Good evening, President Stevens and board members. So just real quick on this, you guys already approved I haven't approved, but we will come to the next board meeting for approval for phase 1 expansion, which is UV and ferric chloride tanks. Last expansion we had was 2017. We did the construction. Then come Donahue and Associates, their system integrating with our SCADA system. They did it on the back end of it. So now we want to get ahead of that. Once we start the phase 1 from your approval, we would like to bring in Donahue and Associates at the front end of this. There's electric components to the UV, and it's a basic panel that comes in that has to be wired on site. So we can put in the PLCs, we can implement this new UV system on our SCADA system. So we would like to see him on the front end. It just makes more sense. He would help out on the electric side. Once we get that, who we're gonna have do the work for us, he will be able to work with them hand in hand. So that would help tremendously on our behalf, pretty much be a general foreman on site on the electric side. So with the cost of material, labor, and building the new SCADA screens, I am asking or requesting $319,400, and I'm here for approval from the board. And the money would be taken out of the wastewaters fund. So.
Any questions for John on his request?
Nope.
Okay,
Motion to approve.
Support.
thank you. Got a motion to support?
Thank you.
Thanks. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion is passed. Next is public comment. I wasn't just eyeing you. New business and the director's report.
Thank you, President Stevens, members of the board. So I'll start with the PCA first. PCA is 0.01829 and 0.01884 for secondary meters. Futures gas pricing are up, or they're all over the map. So if you want to look at it that way, they're anyone from $3.90 a decatherm to $5 a decatherm. So pricing is all over the place. In addition to that, the MISO auction had cleared, and we've got some preliminary results. I can give you the numbers, but we are meeting at the end of the month with MSCPA and have a better understanding of what that cost impact is. Just to give you an idea, this year's average when they went to the seasonal, so you take all 4 seasons, season them across, $6.60 per KW a month. Last year it was 61 cents per KW a month. So we're anticipating increased cost. We're just not quite sure what that impact's going to be yet. So more to come on next month once we get some of that information from MSCPA.
You're expecting the PCA to stay this high over the summer?
We're hoping not,
Okay.
but chances are with the way that the auction cleared and some of the gas pricings and futures, it's looking like we're gonna have higher PCAs.
Yeah.
One of the things that we're looking as well too for our cost of service or our rate design for the electric is to rebalance the system to have more into the, what we would call the base cost and less out of the PCA. So right now our base cost is about $67 a megawatt hour. We're anticipating that that base cost is gonna go up to around 70, maybe a little bit more, $72 a megawatt hour. But then you'll offset that with your PCA cost will go down. There's gonna be no change in the budget because the PCA is just a pass-through.
Right.
But it's just a matter of balancing that setup better for manufacturers because now they have more of a fixed and less of a variable. So that's one of the reasons why we're working with UFS to do that.
Is this generation from solar and stuff obviously is not helping us? Because the auction didn't reflect it.
No, it didn't right now. Some of the issues that we're running into is the capacity requirements and what they're giving you for capacity. But also the cost of some of this new generation coming online is more expensive than what it is. You also run into issues on the winter and fall months where there's not a lot of sun. Similar to what we're seeing at the hydro plants right now, spring and fall, you think were great times for hydros. When you get those spring rains and everything, it brings up the level, which means you don't have a lot of flow going down the river that you can generate off of. So more to come on that. There's going to be some more long-term planning we're going to discuss at MSCPA as well too. Less relying on the market, more on fixed cost, fixed contracts. So that's some of the content that we're going to be bringing up at the end of the month. Mutual aid, if you remember right, March 30th, we had some windstorms roll through. We sent 2 linemen to Montpelier. If you look at that picture on the left-hand side, that's kind of what they came into. They had I don't remember how many transmission poles down, but I do know our guys went there with a digger truck and we set 5 or 6 transmission poles in a single day, which is quite a feat considering those are 80 and 90-foot poles. The picture on the right is a picture, we sent a lineman and apprentice to Sturgis to help them out. They were out there for 2 days, helping to restore power in Sturgis as well too. On a bright note, we were awarded the 2025 APPA Safety Award of Excellence. Over 202 utilities in the country had been awarded that. We got the gold award for the categories that were between 60,000 and just under 110,000 work hours of exposure. This was awarded at their E&O conference in Sacramento this year. Earth Month, to honor and celebrate Earth Month, we did things a little differently this year. Normally, we would just go out to the cemetery and help the cemetery clean up sticks and garbage out of there, as well as do a downtown cleanup. This year, we expanded that. We did the cemetery, we did Heritage Park, we did Parkhurst, JC Park, Sauk River Walk, Waterworks Park, Jefferson Park, and the downtown corridor as well too. We provided lunch for everyone before they went off to their individual sites, and those that did the downtown came through and had a pizza and beverage at Broadway Grill. And thank you to Stephanie for spearheading that and coordinating all the cats and herding them together to get, I believe we had about 130 plus volunteers, which is great to see the community get together for this. So more to come on that for next year. This year, we also did an Earth Month coloring contest for grades 1 through 4. The first time ever, we did a student reception here at City Hall on Earth Day itself, April 22nd. Everyone who turned in a sheet received a free sapling from a pine tree. And we also had some additional giveaways and stuff for the students that were there as well. Thanks to Showcase Garden for their participation in this. I believe it was really well received by the students in the schools as well too. The teachers are now getting used to us coming into the school and taking part of their hectic days and making things fun for them. And also a special thank you to Monica and Stephanie for organizing this throughout the schools. Just a reminder, it's getting to be that time for AC tune-ups. It's recommended that you do this every 2 years. And just a reminder that BPU gives you a $75 rebate for those tune-ups as well too. Strawberry Fest, you think it might be ways away, but it's coming up June 21st. If you want to attend, just attend. If you want to exhibit and sell your wares, by all means, get on the city's website and sign up for that. And just a reminder that Memorial Day and in observance of Memorial Day, the city and the BPU offices will be closed Monday, May 26th. And after that, there's a couple thank yous that we received for some of the sponsorships and stuff that we had put together. And just on a side note too, if you're really keeping track of everything, we've got about a month and a half left of Skidder TV. We've got about 220 Skidder customers left and about little over 1,700 fiber customers. So we're slowly transitioning them over. We did an event at the Burnside Center, which was well received by the residents of the Burnside Center and our senior population. But month and a half, 6 weeks to go, and we'll be out of Skidder. And 220 customers left of Skidder, which means less headaches and boxes that we have to worry about. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have on my report.
I do have a comment on that section. I know someone that received a phone call from a cable company saying that we are ending our service, or they worded it in such a manner that it made this person not understand what was going on. So I don't know if we can do anything to, as we're ending Skidder, that we're not ending our fiber, because I think it's being used in a way to get people to not understand, so then they want to switch.
It is, we've actually received some calls here.
Okay.
When people hear that we're ending Skidder, they think we're ending our internet services.
Right.
And we have to explain to them that we are not ending our internet services. It's just a cable TV subscription. So we'll see if we can maybe tweak the message a little bit to make people understand that we are not we're not eliminating that. Plus, we're the best show in town,
Yes,
because we've got
for
the
sure.
fastest services at the least cost.
Yep.
Anything else for Paul? Okay,
Thank you.
Nikki, the date of the next meeting?
June 4th, Wednesday, June 4th.
Yep.
Good, as
Sure.
far as you know.
Okay, any other questions before we adjourn? We're adjourned.